It's time for another WrestlePlanet news update, as we have news on the upcoming Queen of the Ring tournament. Tony Khan addresses the CM Punk Daniel Bryan AEW rumors, and we find out the backstage reaction to AEW reportedly signing CM Punk. All that and more coming up in today's video, but first, AEW wrestler Nick Nemeth recently appeared on Chris Jericho's Talk is Jericho podcast and discussed a NXT appearance on the popular Netflix series Glow. Nemeth, who is the brother of WWE superstar Dolph Ziggler, revealed that he thought it was his big break before the show was eventually cancelled due to the pandemic. He told Jericho, "I was a boyfriend of one of the characters, and I was thinking maybe this is a one-off episode, but she pulled me aside one day and said, 'I think you're in the whole season.' And I was like, oh yeah, that's a big break. Wrestling and acting, that's perfect. That'd be great." And then we just kept hearing, well, they're gonna delay it more, and then, hey guys, we're just cancelling the whole thing. I thought, come on, just make a movie or something. Ryan Nemeth wasn't the only AEW star affected by the cancellation of Glow, with then AEW talent Awesome Kong also featured on the show. She took a break from AEW in February of last year in order to play her role before the show was cancelled shortly after. She was never seen in AEW again after the promotion let her contract expire last month. This week on Twitter, an old post from the WWE Universe Twitter account has caught the attention of the wrestling community. The tweet shows the now AEW president Tony Khan with WWE superstar Titus O'Neil backstage at a WWE show in Jacksonville. The tweet is dated February 8th, 2015 and reads, "Tonight in WWE Jacksonville, Tony Khan, son of the owner of the Jaguars, came bearing gifts for the WWE superstars." It's interesting to think what Khan's relationship with WWE was like in the past, and it's no surprise for him to be backstage at one of their Jacksonville shows, given he's a huge wrestling fan and a big name in the area. Whilst this isn't exactly news, it's a post that seemingly gotten more attention this week than it ever has before, at least I've never seen it online. I think it's safe to say that Khan may not be as welcome backstage in WWE from here on out. Next up, we have some news from last night's NXT show, which saw confirmation of Samoa Joe's return to the ring. NXT General Manager William Regal was set to fire NXT Champion Karrion Kross after he attacked Regal last week. This led to Regal's enforcer coming down to the ring to question his decision, instead offering him an alternative. He suggested a three-step process to resolve his problem, first with Joe resigning from NXT management effective immediately, second, Regal reinstating Joe back to the active roster, and finally making an NXT Championship match official, with Kross defending his title against Samoa Joe. This follows Joe's NXT return last month as Regal's enforcer after chaos on the brand. Joe was in the position where he would only be able to put his hands on the talent when provoked, and eventually, well, Kross crossed the line. The match is set to take place at NXT TakeOver 36 on August 22nd, live from the Capitol Wrestling Center inside WWE's Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. Last week, Wrestling Inc. reported that WWE had plans to host a new Queen of the Ring tournament, which will be a spin-off of the famous King of the Ring tournament that debuted in 1993. We now have an update from Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men podcast, who revealed WWE plan on hosting the final of the tournament at their next Saudi Arabia show. This follows another recent report from Zarian that WWE looked to host another Saudi show in October later this year. In the past, women were not allowed to attend any shows held in the kingdom due to local laws. Progress has since been made, as in 2018, Renee Young was on commentary for the Crown Jewel event, and again at Super Showdown 2019. Alexa Bliss vs Natalya was also scheduled for the latter, but was later scrapped at the last minute by the Saudi government. WWE finally saw their first women's match in the country in 2019, and this was at the Crown Jewel event, with Natalya taking on Lacey Evans, although they were forced to wear full bodysuits and t-shirts. The next step of progression looks set to happen with the historic Queen of the Ring, which will be the first of its kind in history. Today, AEW President Tony Khan took part in an interview with the New York Post and, as expected, was asked about the rumors of CM Punk and Bryan Danielson signing with All Elite Wrestling. In the interview, Joseph Staszewski asked Tony, Speaking of the next 2 months, have you signed and or talked to any former WWE champions, one of which likes to drop pipe bombs and the other is the leader of a movement? Tony refused to comment on the situation, which you can't blame him for, and responded, "I have no comment on those. Those are good questions, but I can't comment on those." The interviewer then responded with a more roundabout way of asking the question by saying, "Hypothetically, what would it mean for a company other than WWE to add a Daniel Bryan and a CM Punk at the same time? What would that do and what would that say to the world?" Tony refused to answer once again, but did admit the rumors are exciting and said, "I can't comment on those two guys, but I think there are certainly a lot of exciting rumors right now." Despite his refusal to answer, this will no doubt put more pressure on AEW to deliver both signings in the coming months, as I honestly believe if the deals weren't done, he would have flat out denied it. Leaving it open-ended like this seems to suggest that something is at least going on behind the scenes. And quickly, just before we continue, make sure you scroll down and drop a like and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any upcoming wrestling content as we head towards 20,000 subscribers. But now that you've done that, let's get on with the rest of the video. Elsewhere in the interview, Khan was asked about the on-screen connection between the recently debuted Andrade Elidolo and the Guerrero family. Andrade was paired with Vicky Guerrero upon his debut on television, and more recently added Chavo Guerrero to his team as his executive consultant. Tony revealed, "It was his idea to make the connection with the Guerreros and he had asked about using Vicky. It was my idea to bring in Chavo. I thought Chavo would really add something. I'd seen Chavo recently on an independent show. He was in great shape and we had talked about associating because Andrade Elidolo comes from a very famous wrestling family. He wanted to be associated with that, the Guerreros, and Vicky was here. As we went on, I wanted to add something to the presentation and I couldn't put my finger on what. And then I saw Chavo on an independent show and I just had a light bulb moment." It's currently unknown if Chavo has replaced Vicky as Andrade's manager, as she wasn't present during Chavo's debut. I personally don't see Vicky as a good fit for Andrade, as she doesn't really suit the tranquilo vibe that his character sends out. I mean, she's very much the opposite of tranquilo. And finally, we have an update from Fightful regarding AEW's interest in signing CM Punk. Last week, they broke the news that AEW and Punk were in talks, although didn't confirm if anything was officially signed. Since then, it has been confirmed by various other sources that the deal is done, and he will reportedly be making his debut in Chicago in early September at either the Dynamite, Rampage, or All Out pay-per-view, and that is if Chicago stays open for events, fingers crossed. In the latest Fightful report, interest within AEW in signing CM Punk was described as a, quote, closely guarded secret, although clearly not guarded enough. Since their initial report last week regarding Punk and AEW talks, they have since learned that higher-ups in the company had openly discussed the possibility of bringing Punk in since approximately last year, though it's unknown if formal conversations started at that point. We do know that Punk and AEW were in talks near the inception of the company, although those talks did fall through, as we recently covered in a cancelled AEW plans video. CM Punk is said to have been top of conversation backstage over the past week, with several talents who've never worked with him before inquiring about how he is to work with. This will no doubt continue this week, with Dynamite Fight for the Fallen set to take place tonight, and Tony Khan is about to announce a new event which is expected to be the first dance in the United Center in Chicago, and I wonder who might be having their first dance there. And before you go, why not check out my video where I discuss 5 ways that AEW could book the debut of CM Punk.